Uh, the oldest picture I could find of me flying a real model airplane was, I think this is a flight streak. I'm not sure. When I was 12. I tended to go in to do weird stuff. I mean, I did build a flight streak, and everybody had a flight streak. But I also built a 9-foot span control line endurance model, okay? And it had about 2 gallons of fuel, okay, on 70-foot lines. And I was going to set a record that could never be beaten on control line endurance. Well, the thing that I found out was that it didn't have much to do with the model. It had to do with the endurance of the guy that's standing here doing this, you know. And, you know, I'm right-handed with everything except flying control line models. I'm left-handed. And the reason is, when I started, I couldn't afford those $12 motors, so I just sling them. And if you sling this way, you can't see it. But if you sling this way, you can't. So I taught myself to fly control line with the left hand. And I was unable to find a model, a picture of me hovering, but in those days there were 2 big meets. One was the AMA stuff and the Nationals, and they were held all over the place. The closest one was Los Alamitos, which I went to in 1959. Later on, I went to Dallas in 1960, and I'd love to tell you some now. If I have time, I'll tell you some more stories about that. But the things that we had that happened about every other weekend were what was called Western Associated Modelers, or the WAM meets. Anybody remember the WAM meets up in the San Francisco Bay Area? You do, okay. Pop Robbins or whatever that organized that. They're all control line, and they're every kind of control line. And they had different rules for control line carrier. AMA had the rules that you get a point for every mile an hour on your first 7 laps from the time you take off from the carrier. And then you go into low speed and you give some kind of signal that says, I'm flying low speed now. And then they measure how many miles an hour you fly on low speed, and you get a point or some points for the difference between your low speed and your high speed. Okay? Well, WAM had different rules. They gave you a point for every mile an hour on high speed, and they gave you a point for every second that it took you to fly 7 laps on low speed. Okay? It sounded about the same, but still everybody was putting nitro and 60s and trying to get more high-speed points. And I showed up with this Grumman Guardian, and I wish I had the film of it here. I couldn't find it. So I showed up with this Grumman Guardian, and I'm just roaring around at some real mediocre speed. Nobody paid any attention to that. I mean, this kid's got a 35. He's not going to win. But I had 2 handles, and I had a bell crank under the horizontal tail, so I could pull it around to get line tension, and then I could work the throttle this way and the elevator this way, and I could hover it. Now, a year before, some guy did figure 8s over in one corner, and you know, to make more time for 7 laps, and they said, oh, that's illegal. So they made a rule that says you must always be progressing around the circle. That was a constraint we were under. But I brought it around, and I brought it into the wind, and inadvertently I stopped, and I was disqualified. So I'm sitting here not moving forward, and the carrier is over here, and I'm disqualified. So I backed it up, brought it down over the carrier, hooked a wire, and put it down. And everybody was kind of scratching their heads. What's going on here, you know? So anyway, the next flight, I garnered several hundred points by flying this thing at a real slow speed, hovering it, and I beat everyone by the biggest margin that they'd ever seen, you know. So that year, because they couldn't change the rules during the year, I won all of the control line carrier stuff. And then they outlawed me for the next year. But anyway, that's kind of one of my best memories on it.